He's the master of walls. Yeah, he's the master of walls. WALLMASTER OTHORION. Let's get into it. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm MadCapper, and this is another video on Raid Shadow Legends. Today we are doing the HYDRA Nightmare, and we are featuring my good friend WALLMASTER OTHORION. We're going to go through all the builds and how I built out each champion in a minute, but first, without further ado, why don't we just get into the battle. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you the battle, and we're going to talk about it, just key points in the battle. We're going to talk about some opportunities, where I see the damage potential of this team on Nightmare, what else I could have done to do better, what sort of things you can do if you don't have these champions. Then I'm going to go through the builds of each of these champions, of course focusing on WALLMASTER OTHORION himself. And then finally, I'm just going to, at the very end, play this HYDRA run. I'll just append it at the end and you can watch it in its entirety, sped up to probably 3 times just for your viewing pleasure. So if you want to watch the whole fight, you can, but if you don't, you can just watch up until that point. So without further ado, let's get forward. Let's go through here. I will say about the setup, actually, before we do that, the setup is very specific and it's incorrect. And we'll talk about the incorrectness or some opportunities for changes. But the key features here is we're using Shamael to deal with the head of Torment. So we can cleanse the fear, we can boost turn meter. Because we're boosting turn meter, we're using Cupidus in the lead. Cupidus is offering attack in all battles by 33%, which is going to increase his and Othorion's damage. We're using Krisk as a full support Krisk in order to land some debuffs, as well as, especially the decreased attack, as well as ally protect. We're using Venus for the cleanse, as well as, of course, she has a cleanse when she's with Cupidus, as well as the decreased defense, and weaken. Othorion, we're using him for everything. He's in a Hex set, a curse set for Hex. He's dual AoE. He's got high resistance because he'll have more buffs than everyone else at times. And of course, the block debuffs and damage. And then Cardiel is going to be our damage intensifier with his crit damage increase. He does have a crit rate increase, which I'm not really making use of because it's a 4-turn cooldown and a 2-turn buff, so I don't want to rely on that for my team. I think that'd be a little tough. You could, if I could properly tune this around Krisk always increasing that buff, then I could actually build everyone less crit rate, but I can't do that. I can't slow Cardiel down enough to do that. So, hey, for yourselves, there's an easy win for you guys if you want to do that. But he's also the healer. He's also a damage dealer, and he's also a brimstone placer, and he's also the revive on death. So he's wearing a lot of hats. Funny enough, we're not using the speed aura, but that's something you could do if you wanted a little bit more reliability. If you find your team's dying, or if you need those heals, or you need Cardiel's kit to be more consistent, you could put him in the lead. It would drop some of the damage you get out of Cupidus, but it would replace it with the added survivability of Cardiel's kit. And of course, the fact that he's got ally attack, so you're just going to get damage that way more often. So whether it makes a huge difference or not, I don't know. So with that said, that's the team order. There are some changes. Actually, we'll talk about the changes right now. The first thing is I always put Krisk in the number 2 because what happens is when an enemy hits the team, it hits the team in the order, which is top down, top down, top down. So the first person to get hit will always be Cupidus. Now we can't do anything about that. The second person, though, is Krisk, and Krisk places a debuff when he gets hit, which means the other 4 champions are going to have a decreased defense. Sorry, the head or whoever's hitting you is going to have the decreased defense, decreased attack when it hits the next 4 champions, which is going to improve survivability. However, in HYDRA, I would actually recommend against this, and I learned this kind of after the fact, and I would love to fix it. And we will at some point. Now, what I would do is I would at least put Othorion ahead of Krisk. While it is good that he gets some protection, the reality is Othorion, after he kills a few heads, is going to have enough HP to survive himself, And when Cupidus gets eaten and the Head of Torment is up, Shamael will then go to the next in line to boost turn meter, and that'll be your second damage dealer. Or if you prefer Cardial, or if you prefer whichever champion makes a sense. But I don't think Krisk in this case is the champion you want to boost, especially because when you boost Krisk, and Krisk is typically the Head of Mischief target or Othorion, if you get out of turn order, sometimes he steals, in my case, from Shamael, because I don't have it perfectly tuned. But if you had it tuned, you can probably get away from that. So I just want to mention that you want to have that turn order. You could make an argument for letting go of the aura and putting Othorion as your main, because then you're getting that block buff up more often when the Head of Torment is up and you're getting that boosted turn meter. But I leave that up to you. I just say that I think overall, Krisk second may not be your best option. Now, I always start on manual so I can just set up the order, make sure everything's going right, which is exactly what I do here. And you see that turn meter boost, which is such a big deal. You also may have noticed another turn meter boost, and that's because of the gear set we're using on Othorion, but we'll talk more about that later. I think it's an excellent set for him in HYDRA, and I think it's a big deal, and it allows him, even though he's not the lead and getting those boosts from Shamael's passive, he is getting boosts from his set every time he attacks, which means he is cycling through more often and getting more hits as well. Which is why, in this set, he's actually not a good Head of Mischief target. If you're making him the Head of Mischief target, you do not want his turn meter boosted too much, because he'll cycle through his buffs and therefore have less buffs than other team. And it actually happens to me a couple times. Even though I have 2 high resist champions, it still happens to me. So just a word of the wise, or a word of advice. Make sure that you're not putting yourself in unnecessary peril by giving Othorion turn meter boost and then expecting him to be the Head of Mischief target. You will also see that I'm trying, even though I'm on auto, to kind of play around with who I'm picking. See, there's the first time. Immediately it gets stolen because Othorion got boosted and Krisk didn't have enough buffs at the time. So look who had it. The good news is we have multiple ways to deal with this. Shamael can actually strip buffs one at a time when he attacks with his A1. So give him accuracy if you need to. My Venus can cleanse, also very strong. And finally, I do have a block buffs. It just happens to be all 3 of those safeguards were not in play on the Head of Mischief, and he was able to steal. And it was not on the Head of Blight, and so we weren't able to stop the poison cloud or the buff transfer to him. Overall, not too bad. Now, the main reason here to have Krisk is the ally protect right there. He's gonna reduce the amount of damage incoming from the Head of Wrath, who does do a ton of damage. Hot tip, pro tip here when doing HYDRA, when your Head of Wrath is in that state, especially if you have block buffs, so you block the reflect damage, and the Head of Wrath is in that dormant where he has the little buff head, similar to like a new champion. Hit him with everything you got. Focus on him. Doesn't matter if there's heads down or not. You want to kill him. The Head of Wrath will be probably the number 2 reason you lose early, because he gets a really good hit or he gets double hits. You know, he takes his 14 hit and he had full turn meter, so then he goes again, he wipes your team. That's very dangerous and happens all the time. So if you can get rid of the Head of Wrath when you can, do it. Just a thought. Other than that, I like actually focusing on broken heads, because that's where you're going to get that most damage. Okay, so now we're going to fast forward. We're at pretty good. We're at 1 million a turn, but we actually buffered ourselves about 6 million, I think, before the heads started taking turns. So this is really only clipping at about 700,000 per turn, and I think that there's more opportunity here. Here, as you see, as we move forward, you're getting closer to even, and then here we're down quite considerably. So part of that is the head rotation as well. So you see how, you know, the turns are just eclipsing the amount of damage I have, but still pretty strong damage overall. Pretty impressed. There's definitely opportunity for more damage that I left on the field. So why don't we take it in at 75 at 100, turn 100. We're still doing pretty good. 78 million. I'm okay with that. There's been no hiccups, no issues whatsoever. You also see that Othorion now has more health. And that's, I wonder if we see any of the places where he actually gets a kill. I'm pretty sure he kills the head right here. No, he doesn't. How does he got health at some point. When he kills the health, his passive will add 10k up to a maximum, I believe, 100k. So that's going to be very big into his survivability. Once he gets there, you can build him out full nuke because he's going to get there. I do suggest, if you're a little bit concerned about it, manual until you get a couple. Like, try to set up a couple good kills for him until he steals some health or gains some health from his passive, and then away you go. So now we're gonna fast forward it through. We break the 100 million. We're going fine at this point. There is no issue going on here. However, at 124, you see I have a 1 turn. Here, we'll actually go back a little bit. Now, when I talked about protecting your buffs, here's a perfect example. Because I'm getting turn meter boost on Othorion, he's got 6 buffs, and I think he actually gets another one here. So here we go. Boom. He's got the most buffs. He's got more buffs than anyone. But he's getting boosted turn meter, so he's going to go. But Krisk isn't ready to go yet to put on his buffs. And what will happen is the Head of Mischief will steal from our good friend. Now, this part of this was just the issue that he didn't have his A2 up in time to be able to put the block buffs on it. Also, weak affinity. So there's going to be times when he's just going to weak hit on that block, and that's just going to be the bad RNG. But in this case, it's probably would have been preventable. But that's not the only issue that happens here. He's about to get eaten. Buffs get stolen. We did not save Venus. We did not, and we did not land the Hex. We could put multiple champions in Hex. Conceivably, we could put Krisk in Hex because he's got he's got a couple AoEs that could land the curse, a curse to land the Hex. We could do that, and we haven't. And we could conceivably put Cupidus, although I'll show you Cupidus's gear and why we do what we do with him. We have him in Bloodthirst gear to help him be his own survivor, which he's probably the most at-risk champion here. So it's always a good idea to make sure that if you're using Cupidus that he's protected that way. And so it just makes more sense that I make sure he doesn't get killed. Alternatively, you could put him in a curse set and then just make sure you have a reviver instead of Cardial. With Cardial, I'm kind of pushing for extra damage instead. Now back to this run. Sorry. Now he gets eaten. So he's got a 2-turn buff on him because the buff extension, I got the passive worked, so that's double bad. I didn't save Venus she's a turn late on cleansing, but she does have the cleanse here, so fine, we still have it, but we can't target him, and that's where the problem is. We don't have an opportunity to put Hex down, and then the worst part, we didn't have Taunt or Provoke, available. Because we didn't have Provoke available, the Head of Decay puts the shield on him, beginning of the end. We're at 125. We still do another 10 million damage without Othorion, which imagine how well that would have went if we would have been able to have Othorion go on. And that's one of the reasons why I think this has at least a 150 million potential. But also, Othorion is such a big part of this puzzle that it just starts falling apart. You can see they're stealing buffs, they're sharing buffs, people are dying, people are getting eaten. We just can't stop this from happening. And eventually we wipe out and die, but at 138.63. As I said, that's a quick look at this team. The next thing I want to talk about is where I think I can improve. We talked about turn order. Let's talk about a few other things. First off, conceivably, I could put Othorion in the lead. However, I do like the increased attack, so I don't necessarily think that in this particular instance with this team that is needed. What I will say is I should speed up Inquisitor Shamael so that he's 1 speed slower than Krisk, and then make sure that neither of them have specific turn meter concerns that'll allow one to boost over the other. That way Krisk is always going right before Inquisitor Shamael, and we can make sure that Shamael won't always lose the buffs because Krisk is getting further and further ahead of him so that they're not properly tuned. You always want to make sure, Inquisitor Shamael goes 1 turn earlier, either before or after. So you just want to make sure that Krisk has full buffs up when Shamael has all his buffs up, right? So just make sure you turn for that. Alternatively, Othorion, I have him in turn meter boosting set, but if I needed to, I could take him out of that, which would allow me to have 2 different champions that would have more buffs than Shamael to protect him. Also, my Cardial is built for Fire Knight and for arena, so he's way faster than he should be. I believe he's 367. We'll take a look when we see. Slowing him down would help the overall speed tune and make this a cleaner overall run, which would probably increase my damage. But I'm not going to change Cardiel, but I do like him in this team, so we're just going to have to suffer with that, and we'll suffer in silence. Be happy. Also, Krisk, very poor damage. You see right away, Othorion has 51.9. He is the top damage dealer. Number 2 is Cupidus at 36 million. That is so strong because he's got two AoEs to Cupidus's 1. Othorion's just doing more damage. Could we change Cupidus to just use his A1? Absolutely. His A1 and his A2. His A2 puts HP burnout. The A3, we could get rid of that, but I still think that Othorion's just going to do more damage because it's his A2 that's doing so much damage as well, plus the self buffs. Makes everything go nicely. Plus, Othorion, I don't need to have any sort of accuracy, or at least I can reduce it considerably because he self buffs accuracy. That means I can put more of that into damage, whereas Cupidus, if I want him to use his HP burns, which I do, I have to give him a monicum of accuracy. So I think there's a lot of damage availability if I put Othorion in second, so he gets turn meter boosted like I mentioned, but also Krisk himself can do a heck of a lot more damage. He's only at 3.5. He's a full support Krisk with bolster set. I've actually already rebuilt him because I used the wrong Krisk. This is my 2-star Krisk. I meant to use my 3-star Krisk in Cruel. What I realized is I didn't have a cruelty champion in the bunch, and that was a big mistake on my part. If I would have had Krisk in a cruelty set, it would have improved overall, and then I could put Cupidus in like a heaven cast set because he is actually doing quite a bit of damage. But just thoughts, and also I had 3 Brimstone champions. Get rid of Venus and Krisk with Brimstone, put them in other abilities, and then take Cardiel and put him in the Brimstone, which I have, and make sure I'm targeting the Head of Suffering with Cardiel until I land that Brimstone. Because the Brimstone is protected, the Head of Suffering is the best champion to have, or the best head to have that debuff on, because he uses multiple of his skills. In a perfect world, the Head of Decay is not using skills. The Head of Mischief only uses skills if he steals buffs, which is not good for you. So the Suffering is always going to put the A2, A3 going on. He takes 2 turns at a time sometimes. So it's the best time to get a lot of damage out of Brimstone, which can help your overall numbers considerably. So with that said, let's take a look at the team itself. I think that there's actually, you know what? Let's do one more thing. Looking at this team and what sort of alternates. Say you have the Othorion, WALLMASTer Othorion. Well, who else do you put him with him? Well, these are not steadfast champions so much as they are slot holders. So champion 1 is a damage dealer. I'm putting a damage dealer in the lead. They can also be in any position depending on what damage dealer, but it's any damage dealer. You could put Artak in this position as far as the damage dealer. You could put Tsumeya. She's very strong, very great. You could do a Krizia if you have a Krizia. You know, there's so many different champions. Also, I use Venus because I have Cupidus, but conceivably Lydia might be the better champion than Venus, so you could use Lydia in this position for Venus, but you could use any champion that's debuffing. You could use Mishinaki. Great, he's got the cleanse and he's got a debuff. He has a decreased attack as well, though he doesn't have the weaken, so you let go of the weaken but put in there. There's so many champions you can use in that position. Othorion, well, he's the one that we're looking at, so you don't replace him. If you don't have Inquisitor Shamel or don't want to use him, use a Veil champion. If you don't want to do that, make sure you tune your team around the negative effect of fear during the Head of Torment. You can do that by always making sure, for example, I have Cardiel. If I know my champions are going to take a round of hitting Torment, especially my AoE champions, then having Cardiel cleanse, and then using single target abilities around that time. Now, some champions like Othorion, you can't necessarily do that way, but you can do ways to minimize the amount that the fear proc will hurt you, and you can target specifically the Head of Torment to kill it if you're not using Shamael when you have a cleanse upcoming, be it Cardiel's cleanse or another champion that you're using. So great opportunities there. Cardiel himself, for stability, you probably want to use a Reviver. If you can use a Reviver, healer, turn meter boost, even better. I've used Siphi in this position to test, and it worked quite well. In fact, it was only about 20 million less damage. It was last week, maybe, yeah, about 20 something million, 25 million maybe. But you could use Arbiter. You could use obviously if you're using Duchess, then you can remove Cardial and Inquisitor Shamael and add another damage dealer. So you could use Sulfurion, which would be really great because he has the HP burns as well. So there's a lot of different ways you could run this team with Wallflower. The big thing is you don't need a block buffs champion because he's going to do that, and you have a top tier damage dealer. So you pair him with a Crizia, man, you're going to be doing 1 billion damage. I would love to show you, but I don't have an Crizia. So lots of opportunity on this team. Now let's take a look at my team, and then finally I'll let you run this. I'll run the at the very end. I'll run the damage. I'll run the video in its entirety, sped up to probably 3 times speed, just so you can watch the whole run if you want to. So, man of the hour, let's talk about WALLMASTER OTHORION and how I built him. I built him in a double set opportunity, and that means I am using the Slayer set, and the Slayer set gives you crit rate, crit damage, speed, but most importantly, fills this champion's turn meter by 5% per each enemy hit by AoE attacks. Now, he's attacking 4 enemies, 4 AoE hits on both of his skills, because he gets an extra turn on his one skill that doesn't attack. So he's always filling 20%. Every time he attacks, he's getting 20%. That's turning over a lot. And we like that because it does improve the uptime on his block buffs, and it does improve the uptime on his other set, which we're using, which is the Curse set, which has a 50% chance to place Hex debuff for 2 turns. That's really important to be able to target the Head of Mischief. But beyond that, every time you hit any other champion, anyone with a Hex debuff takes reflective damage. So it does amp your damage. And we put him in 4 and 4. We have the 1 extra just because it was a decent speed accuracy set with resistance, so that we can have the proper numbers. Now let's take a look at him with the in the Hydra battles. You can see I didn't have enough resistance. That was my fault. I grabbed the wrong numbers. That should be 455, but that accuracy at 325 is perfectly fine, because he's putting a 50% increase accuracy on himself, which allows you to lower his accuracy. The accuracy actually could be a little bit lower, but this just happened to be how it worked. And so I can boost that crit damage. I can boost that attack. He doesn't even have a huge attack. I think we could do even better if I played around and moved some ones. But in this set, this is the best we could do. Just put this in perspective. He did the most damage on the team, a team that has Cupidus, with only 3,500 attack. Imagine his damage when I get more and better Slayer pieces to allow me to do 5k attack, 6k attack. I can't wait till I get more gear and more ability to run. That's when the Slayer set comes back up in the Forge. I will be buying it, because I do want to build this out better. So there's Othorion. As far as his masteries, I think I'm not in the way. Good. War Master, we put the counterattack. We made sure to give him that extra resistance to help out. Retribution, deterrence, just whatever. Deterrence. Does anyone ever get stunned? Well, I guess the fear, right? He can counterattack when they apply a fear. I don't know if that I believe it works even though the fear is cleansed, because technically the fear is placed and then cleansed by Shamael. So I think he still does do that 20% attack. So that's very good. We also have 30% chance to decrease the cooldown around his skill. We don't need his A3 to be on a tune. We just need it to hit as often as possible to increase the uptime for his A2. So we don't mind this having a cooldown. This could conceivably change up his A3, but I don't think it's in a really negative atmosphere. If it speeds it up better, we're just reapplying it. If it doesn't speeds up something else, then I think we're still fine. So just thoughts there. Cycle of Violence seems to be fine. And of course, War Master proc we want, because we want that extra chance to do extra damage. We saw his total stats. We talk about him again. 221. Keep in mind that I do have bonuses here. So we're getting 233 speed, 289 crit damage, 411 should be 455 resistance. And I think this can be about 260, because I think you want 390. I think you need 410 accuracy if you're going up against the Head of Suffering. So the Head of Suffering is the only one that can resist because he puts a bonus 50 resist on everyone, but he's also the highest resist. So I think you need 410 accuracy to land it on the Head of Suffering virtually all the time. And at 325, that gives him another 160. He's overtuned on that a bit. So we could probably knock his accuracy down to, at 300, it would be 450. So at 275, I don't know, you do the math. You can definitely lower this down to a number to give you more of everything else. It just so happens, again, because I had a limited amount of the Slayer gear, there's only certain things. Also, as you can see, defense 20%, not what we're looking for. We did get the speed here. Attack is good. We have him in a resistance chest because that's what we needed. I'm hoping at some point we can build him out without the resistance chest and still use these sets and still get what we're looking for. So just thoughts out there. Probably we could put this into a resistance piece instead of an accuracy piece, which would allow us to maybe make it work out that way. We'll see. Anyway, so that's WALLMASTER OTHORION. Next up, we'll take a look at Cupidus. Now, Cupidus I have in a Bloodthirst set, and that's because I want to make sure he lives no matter what. He is the champion that has to live because he's the champion that kills everyone else. He's got the AoEs. Now, you could argue that WALLMASTER, but because he's the lead, Cupidus is going to get more turns with the Shamael combo. So we did put him in a Bloodthirst set, so it's that 30% lifesteal. His total stats when we go to Hydra battles, he's got 7391 attack, 388 crit damage, 395 accuracy, so he's not quite at that 410, but close enough. And we don't have any resistance, that's fine. But just put that in perspective that Othorion still handily beat him in damage, and he's got 7391 attack. Imagine if Othorion had 7391 attack. I think it would be a pretty ridiculous number. So again, I'm looking forward. This team has double potential. 300 million is easily the potential of this team. As far as masteries go, we have him in Helm Smasher. We shouldn't. I should actually change that. I was using him in 3v3 arena for a while, so that's probably why I still have that. So I should probably change that up. This is how I typically run his build for arena. So when I had him in Stone Skin, so we should probably change that out. I won't change it right now, but you want the accuracy to help him with the HP burn, and you want WARMASTER to help with the damage, and you probably want things like increases damage inflicted when attacking targets with a higher max HP. So just so we're aware of what that should be. Venus is in just a broken set to make stats, and here's the thing: you can totally crit cap her. You can make her do way more damage. I hadn't because of originally I had her in the arena with Cupidus, and then when I switched her to this, I basically just took her out of a 4 pieces of Stone Skin and just made the numbers work. So she has tons of survivability with her HP. 279 speed, should be crit capped, is not, and has more than enough accuracy. Again, we can drop that accuracy down to 410 to make sure it's 100%. And honestly, because the head of Torment has the reflect damage, you're gonna want her to make sure she can cleanse that. So you don't want to go lower than 410 accuracy for Nightmare with Venus. As far as her masteries, we have her WARMASTER. This is a pretty typical loadout. Oh god, if I can grab meat. Oh god, can you come on now? I hate that. Okay, so you can see it over here. It's WARMASTER. You don't need to see it. You know what it is. It's WARMASTER. Now our Cardiel is very fast because I use him, like I said, in other areas. So he's sitting at 360, but with Hydra, he's actually sitting at 372 speed, 54k HP, but he does have okay attack, 4600, crit capped with 216 crit damage, 274 accuracy. He's not landing accuracy. He has high resist, not for any particular reason, but it is another person that can evade losing buffs if the Head of Mischief decides to go after him. As far as mastery, now he's in a Swift Parry gear. I put him in Swift Parry gear so long ago. I never took him out because it offers good stats and speed, and I don't really use the gear set anymore, so it works just fine, and allows me to use him in arena as yet another little kind of annoyance, having Swift Parry on my Cardiel. So that's why we did that. And because I do use him in the Fire Knight, we do have him with Warmaster, and we do have this extends the duration of any buff, and then just improved healing. We do want improved healing on Cardiel. He's been in I've had him probably in more blessings than anyone other. Because he's 6-star, I like this because it's a guaranteed and protected smite, which means he doesn't need accuracy to land it, and it's targeted with his A1, so I don't have to worry about where I'm putting that smite. I can manually target where if I choose to, which I didn't in this run, which is probably why I did less damage. Also very good as a speed aura. If you want to put him as a lead, that's perfectly acceptable as well. There's our Cardiel. Our Krisk is in bolster. This is the bad Krisk. This is a bad Krisk. Speed's right. You want him over 250 speed. You want him his resistance, which I've actually started changing. So his resistance was proper. Let's see, maybe it still is proper. Hydra battles 448. So it's supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be 455 to be perfect. But pretty good. That might be why a couple times he lost it there. I thought it was at 455, but we're pretty good there. Accuracy 399, almost there as well. So almost perfect numbers for him. But I should probably tune him out a little bit. I'll actually show you the other Krisk I have, which is the one that should have been in this comp when I started recording. Finally, we have Inquisitor ShamWow. We're putting him in a Savage set. We do want to get that extra damage. So we have him in Hydra battles, and you can see his damage, 5,900 attack, 269 crit damage, way too slow. That's something we talked about. To better speed tune, I should speed him up. And we don't really need him with accuracy, though I will suggest very good to have him at 410 accuracy if you can get it, because then you can actually strip with his A1. You can strip or reduce the turns. It has a 50% chance, book to 75, of decreasing the duration of a random buff on the enemy target by 1 turn. Now remember, he's shooting stuff, right, with his passive. And so there's a lot of things you can do here, which I do like this. It removes the true fear from the team. Fill the team leader's turn meter at 15, and the fear proc can go on 4 champions, so he's just boosting and boosting. And it actually, each critical hit fills this champion's turn meter by 7.5 as well, which will not happen on your A1 counter, because your counter, the attack piece, where is it here? Every time an enemy places a debuff, uses the skill, the counterattacks will only deal 50% of the normal damage and cannot be critical, which is why some people may consider putting him really high attack. I don't think it's worth it, but it is nice because it will still do the debuff part. So you can actually strip champions using Inquisitor ShamWow if you need to. It's always an added bonus, which is why I have him nearly the proper amount of accuracy. So there's the team. What do you think? Are you using WALLMASTER OTHORION? Let me know in the comments down below. Let me know how you're using him, where he's good for you. We'll probably show Masteries. Look at this. Masteries. He's in Giant Slayer because he's got a triple hit A2. So where are you using Othorion? Do you like him? Did you go for him? If you didn't, are you regretting it? Let me know in the comments down below. Finally, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Please be kind, be safe, like, subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. you.